The wind howled outside as Daniel wrapped an old blanket tighter around his shoulders, watching the last of the firewood crackle in the stove. The trailer creaked with each gust of wind, and Max, his 5-year-old son, slept curled up in the one bed they shared, his little hands clutching a worn-out stuffed dinosaur. Money had been tight for months, and Daniel was used to skipping dinner just so Max could have a proper meal. That night, he sat quietly at the small kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee and wondering how he would stretch his remaining dollars to last the week. Just then, a soft, hesitant knock startled him. He frowned. No one came around at this hour, especially not out here on the edge of town. He opened the door slowly, bracing against the cold, and found a teenage girl standing there, drenched from head to toe, her clothes soaked, hair plastered to her face, and eyes wide with fear. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I don't have anywhere else to go." For a moment, Daniel hesitated. He didn't even have enough blankets to keep Max fully warm, let alone a stranger. But then he looked at her, really looked. Her shoes were high-end, her coat expensive though ruined by the rain, and her accent was polished. She didn't belong out here, that much was clear. But it wasn't wealth or mystery he saw, it was desperation, the same kind he'd once felt holding a newborn in a hospital room with nowhere to go. Without another word, he stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze," he said. She nodded, brushing past him quietly, water dripping onto the floor. He handed her a towel and made a bed for her on the worn-out couch using every spare blanket he had. As she curled up under the covers, Max stirred and looked up. "Who's that, Daddy?" he asked sleepily. "Just someone who needed a little help," Daniel whispered, brushing his son's hair back. He didn't know her name, her story, or why she looked like she'd run from a mansion and landed on his doorstep. All he knew was that she needed shelter for one night, and despite having almost nothing, his heart wouldn't let him say no. The next morning, Daniel rose early, quietly rummaging through the cupboards to find something, anything, he could make for breakfast. There wasn't much, a bit of flour, half a carton of milk, and one lonely egg. He mixed it all together and poured small circles onto the old griddle, hoping the smell would make the morning feel less heavy. The girl was still asleep on the couch, curled tightly in the blankets like she hadn't rested in days. When she finally stirred, Daniel caught a glimpse of her face in the morning light, young, maybe 16 or 17, with smooth skin and eyes too tired for her age. She sat up slowly, clearly disoriented, but managed a soft, "Thank you," when he handed her a plate with 2 small pancakes. "I'm Daniel." "That's Max," he said, nodding toward the boy on the floor, already busy building a tower of cereal boxes. "And you?" She hesitated, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Ellie," she finally said. "Just Ellie." There was something practiced about her calmness, the way she sat straight and spoke clearly. Her manners were flawless, too flawless for someone supposedly lost and alone. But Daniel didn't press. He knew what it was like to carry burdens too heavy to unpack with strangers. As the morning passed, Ellie offered to wash dishes, helped Max draw, and even swept the small living room without being asked. She fit in like someone who had longed for this kind of normal. Later, as Max napped, Daniel and Ellie sat at the table, the air between them comfortable but filled with questions neither dared to ask. She finally spoke, her voice soft but laced with meaning. "You didn't ask who I am." "Why?" Daniel shrugged. "Didn't think it mattered. You needed help. That's enough." Ellie looked down, silent for a long moment, then whispered, "You have no idea who I am, do you?" Before he could respond, her phone buzzed, he hadn't noticed it charging on the side table. She picked it up, stared at the screen. "Dad, 100 missed calls." She quickly shut it off. "Please," she said quietly, "can I stay just one more night?" Daniel didn't know what secret she held or why she was running, but he nodded. "As long as you need, kid. As long as you need." The next day unfolded like any other, slow and quiet, with Max tugging on Ellie's sleeve every few minutes, eager to show her his drawings, his toy truck, or how high he could jump from the couch. She laughed in a way that felt real, no longer the guarded girl who arrived cold and soaked. But Daniel couldn't shake a feeling building in his gut. He'd seen something odd that morning while picking up a few groceries with coins scraped together from the bottom of his glove box. At the corner store checkout, a tabloid headline screamed, "Millionaire's daughter missing, reward hits $1 million." Beneath it was a photo, blurry but unmistakably Ellie, dressed formally, standing beside a stern-faced older man in a tuxedo. Daniel stared, stunned. The girl sleeping on his couch wasn't just some lost teenager, she was the missing daughter of real estate mogul Charles Whitmore, one of the richest men in the state. Back at home, Ellie was braiding Max's hair as he giggled. Daniel closed the door behind him and quietly placed the newspaper on the table. "Ellie," he said, his voice low but firm, "we need to talk." Her body froze. When she turned around and saw the photo, she didn't try to deny it. Instead, tears welled in her eyes. "I ran away," she whispered. "I couldn't take it anymore. My life, it wasn't mine. Fancy dresses, bodyguards, scheduled interviews, I haven't made a real choice in years. No one talks to me like you do. No one sees me like Max does." Daniel sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Ellie, they're looking for you. There's helicopters. Police." She shook her head, pleading, "I'm not ready to go back. Not yet. Please." He paused, torn between what was right by the law and what felt right in his heart. But he knew he couldn't keep her hidden, not when the whole world was searching. He made the call. Less than an hour later, the sound of a helicopter thumped above the trees. Ellie hugged Max tightly, whispering something into his ear that made him smile, then walked to the door with Daniel. "You gave me something I've never had," she said tearfully. "A real home, even if just for a few days." Daniel nodded, watching her step into a world she no longer fit into, never knowing she'd be back sooner than he ever imagined. 2 weeks had passed since Ellie left, and though the house was quiet again, it felt emptier than ever. Max asked about her every day, where she was, when she'd come back, if she still remembered the pancake mornings and the puzzles they never finished. Daniel didn't have the heart to tell him the truth, that people like Ellie belonged to a different world, a world of chauffeurs and marble floors, not broken-down trucks and patched jackets. Still, something about her absence left a mark deeper than Daniel expected. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, just as Daniel was returning from a long shift cleaning out gutters, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of the trailer. The driver opened the door, and out stepped Ellie, dressed in high-end clothing but with the same bright eyes and soft smile. Behind her stood a tall, intimidating man in a tailored coat, her father, Charles Whitmore. Daniel stood frozen as Max sprinted out the door, shouting her name and leaping into her arms. Ellie hugged him tightly, then looked up at Daniel, her eyes already welling with tears. "I told you I'd come back," she said softly. Charles stepped forward, his voice calm and full of humility. "Mr. Carter, I owe you more than I can say. You sheltered my daughter, not knowing who she was, and protected her without asking anything in return. That kind of integrity is rare. I'd like to help you, if you'll let me." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I didn't do it for anything in return." Ellie stepped in gently. "But maybe let us help this time. You helped me find something I'd lost, real connection. A place that felt like family. You gave me more than any mansion ever could." A week later, Daniel found himself managing a small community center funded by the Whitmore Foundation, with enough pay to finally breathe again. Max had new clothes, hot meals, and even a room of his own. Ellie still visited every weekend, now with her father's blessing, always bringing laughter and light. Though she'd returned to her world, part of her heart had stayed behind, in the small, weathered trailer where, for the first time, she was truly seen and loved. And Daniel, once a poor single dad with nothing to offer, had become the reason a lost girl found her way home.